Coming up in this episode.
As I launched Spark 2.5 years ago, nobody, and I mean nobody, had any idea what I was doing. Oh, you're a brain gym. Oh, it means that who comes to your gym has a brain problem. I'm like, oh my God, are you for real? Spark really means the spark that happens in your brain when you train this type of weight, what we call the sparked weight, which is essentially a multi-component type of training made up of cardio, strength, coordination, motor balance, but also it includes and combines the cognitive training.
And what have you learned along the journey?
What we've been really able to learn at Spark is really the impact it has on users, on our clients. What fulfills me most is when they subjectively report improvement. I already start feeling more energetic. I already start feeling I'm driving better. I already start feeling I'm faster at work. Well, that's when I go, that's brilliant.
What's the thinking and the story behind Spark?
If I can help my parents maybe avoid dementia, and then next generation, that's me. I want to remember my kids' names as I grow old. People tell me, no, don't do it, you're crazy, you're not going to get many results. But I'm like, actually, I think I will. And therefore, I want to be a bit daring and challenging.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Geeks podcast. Today I have with me Anna from Spark, and in a while we'll be talking about brain fitness. Before that, just a quick update. One main announcement, Athletic Greens is now in Singapore. I've been testing out the product for the past few months, and in upcoming months I'll be doing reviews on the product. If you'd like to try it out, you can check out the link in the description. By doing so, you'll get extra servings as well as more goodies included in your order. As usual, for more exclusive deals, subscribe to our channel and check out allwin.co. With that, back to the episode. Hi Anna, welcome to the show.
Thank you, hi.
Firstly, thank you for your time. First question to you is, what's the thinking and the story behind Spark, which is your brainchild?
Yes, so I started conceptualizing Spark about 3.5 years ago. I was starting to think about a space that I wanted to train in as I was getting older. So what do I want to keep up with when I'm older? And definitely my brain. I want to remember my kids' names as I grow old. But it wasn't really just that. I really started looking into neuroscience and how exercise impacts our brain. Of course, physically, for sure. I mean, I've been a personal trainer for 20 years, so I've been working on the physical aspect and side of things for all my life, really. I've been in movement all my life. But what really became fascinating for me was really the brain and how as we move, how as we exercise, as we bring blood flow to the brain, what happens there and all the benefits that come from it. From neuroplasticity, brain-derived neurotrophic factors, growth vessels, and also if you train long enough, especially maybe in certain disciplines, your brain volume gets bigger. So all these benefits are extremely fascinating to me. I also have, unfortunately, history of dementia in my family. So that really brought the whole idea and concept for me, made it really a passion and really a mission. So first and foremost, obviously, wow, if I can help my parents maybe avoid dementia, and then next generation, that's me. How do I prevent from that happening to me, right? I mean, it's not a certainty for sure, but yeah, what can I do to live a longer and not just longer life, but really being copacetic, right? And so these are all aspects that really, really attracted me and interested, and that's how I saw Sparked. As I did my research into what was going on globally around the world in the different markets, specifically more so in the US, I came across athletes doing this type of training, from Formula One drivers, of course, to basketball players, soccer players, NFL players, rugby players, tennis players, MMA players, boxing. And I was like, wow, that's super, super interesting. Obviously, they're working on a performance side of things. On the other hand, this type of training was also utilized in neurorehabilitation settings when it comes to neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson, multiple sclerosis, early stages dementia, mild cognitive impairments, post-stroke, post-cancer as well. And so that kind of, fascinated me too. I was like, wow, two different spectrum of people. One, people with conditions, and one, athletes. And then I came to think, wow, and what about everyone else in between? What are we doing to prevent decline or neurodegenerative diseases? But also, what are we doing to maybe aspire to perform like a real athletes, like a top athletes. I mean, a lot of us maybe play amateur sports and we do what we are accustomed to do, but how do we get better at that? And therefore, how do we maintain our physical and cognitive abilities as long as possible and perform really at the highest level in life? So, long story, but that's how I really came to conceptualize SPARKD. SPARKD really means the spark that happens in your brain when you train this type of way, what we call the SPARKD way, which is essentially a multi-component type of training made up of cardio, strength, coordination, motor balance, but also it includes and combines the cognitive training. So yes, the equipment and technologies that I selected for SPARKD are predominantly targeting that kind of customer and client that is looking at prevention, performance, and longevity.
A few things to double click in.
Sorry.
Processing what you have mentioned. I'm just curious from the onset. You started a company 3.5 years ago, you said?
The conceptualization, yes.
Yeah.
We opened 2.5 years ago now.
And what changed since then? What have you learned along the journey? I guess it's always very interesting because there's someone passionate about a topic. At first you dive into it and then you try to gather all the resources you have. And then eventually, a few years later, you learn that, hey, actually in the first place, you didn't know as much. Yeah, what are some learnings from this 2.5 years, 3.5 years?
Yes. Well, massive learnings. And this is why it keeps me still so passionate about this topic. Because there is so little we still know about the brain. There's still so little we know about the combination of brain and physical. And it's so much evolving that it's just keeping me on my toes all the time. So what have I learned? Heaps. Yes, you learn about the type of training. Yes, you learn about the science. Yes, you learn about the brain and you combine that with the physical. But what we've been really able to learn at SPARKD is really the impact it has on users, on our clients, how they react. First and foremost, how do people perceive this type of training and our concept? That's one thing that, as I launched SPARKD 2.5 years ago, nobody, and I mean nobody, had any idea what I was doing. For me, it was literally a no-brainer. I was like, well, this is just obvious. I mean, we have a body, we have a brain. Of course, we need to improve and work on both. But when I launched the concept, people were just like, whoa, what is this? Oh, this is so niche. And I used to laugh at people saying, oh, do you have a brain? And then go, yeah. I'm like, well, there you go. Ain't that niche after all, right? Just because you don't have a condition, you don't really know what's going on there, right? I mean, yes. So it was super interesting to see people's reaction to it. And there was a lot of skepticism at the beginning, I must say. There was a lot of enthusiasm from more biohacking and geeks and stuff like that, let's say. But the general population was super fascinating to watch and see how they reacted to the concept. So we have some early adopters that stayed with us from the beginning. And once they embraced it, they're like, well, again, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, you would train combining the two and working on both aspects, right? So that certainly has been a massive curve of learning, right? I mean, that spans obviously into education, into marketing, into the whole thing. From the training perspective, massive learnings as well. We tested ourselves with the trainers, we tested different type of workouts and so on clients because literally we didn't have a manual to follow training programs. So we had to really, it was kind of a lab at the beginning, if I'm honest. So we learned a lot and we tested all sorts of games, exercises, how do people react, what do they find, customization, for instance, personalization on training. It's massive because you're not only customizing the physical side of things like in a normal gym, you're really customizing what happens in their brain. So when you see their cognitive report, we do cognitive reports at the beginning of their journey with us, you see how their brains are performing and functioning at that particular moment in time. From there, you program through the technologies what you're going to be doing with this client to improve them in the domains and in the areas they want to improve and then they need to improve. As a trainer for 20 years, for me, the most fascinating thing I've ever done, I must admit. And the level of details you can go in with clients, it's endless. when you get a client that has a condition that you may not be too familiar with, and as a trainer, you have to go in and do a hell of a lot of research, it's just extremely fascinating. The next level fascinating thing is that, yes, we can create programs that are, for instance, are for someone with Parkinson, as an example. But there are so many shades of Parkinson. There are so many levels. So you have to meet your client where they are at. And when you are programming for those clients, it is just so individual. So you really never stop learning. So that's been another massive learning for myself and, of course, the team as well. The other thing is what I find extremely interesting as well is the data. So data collection. We do a lot of data collection. We can track our customers' results from the beginning and on a regular basis and stuff like that. And that's something that has excited me very much so, because we have access to a fair bit of tech, and to be able to see that improvement and those results are just, again, very, very exciting. Customers are actually hungry for that. They are hungry. They want to know. That's why we all wear wearables now, because we want to know more about what we're doing, and we want to customize as much as we can so that it fits our life and journey and our purpose.
Yes, exactly. I would love to understand the data points a little bit more, perhaps in a later question.
Sure.
But to still continue on the questions on learnings and insights, I understand you have shifted from your previous location to this location. Were there any changes to the equipment or to the setup or the conceptualization of building this place?
Yeah, so predominantly we've kept a very, very similar setup, and most of the equipment we had in our previous location stayed the same. We noticed that a particular tech wasn't particularly doing the job that we were looking for, and so we switched it with something else to kind of meet more of the fun aspect of the training, because I didn't mention yet, but the training we do is very fun. There's a lot of gamification. The reason for it is because it's fun to play games. A lot of clients don't like to gym and exercise as much as, obviously, as trainer, we love going to the gym and so on, but a lot of the average person doesn't really enjoy that. So we have gamification into our training programs. And yeah, we've switched some of the equipment around to add that. We've added some new lighting systems, reaction light system, that have more stimuli, so that are a bit more cognitively challenging as opposed to just reaction lights. So yeah, we've adapted according to the customer we're working with.
It's a great segue to the next question, which is, when a client comes to you, what is the initial process like?
We have different services. So we have group classes, and we have personal training, and then we have team buildings, right? So for the group class person, typically they just join a class. They see us somewhere and they just get attracted predominantly by the gamification, something new, something different. And so they want to fulfill that need, let's say. When it comes to personal training, that's where our customer journey is way more defined and way more specific and customized to who we are working with. So a customer might come for a specific condition, or they may come for performance longevity purposes. They typically have a good idea in mind of why they are here. They've heard about us and so on and so forth. So we take into account, obviously, their goals, what they are trying to achieve. That's first and foremost the most important thing. And then we assess them both physically and cognitively with a cognitive validated test that they can do online. They do that before they come to the gym in the comfort of their homes. We get a full report on their cognition. We look at that and we pair that with our in-house assessment. Based on that, in conjunction with their goals, we then program their 3 months program. I don't want to call it intervention. I was just about to say intervention, but it sounds too medical. But it's a program/intervention according to what we're doing. And then we retest them. Of course, yes, the data and the reassessment with the cognitive testing is very, very important. However, what fulfills me most is when they subjectively report improvement. When they come to me during the session, I already start feeling more energetic. I already start feeling I'm driving better. I already start feeling I'm faster at work. well, that's when I go, that's brilliant. We're going in the right direction. So yeah, that's how our customer journey works. For team buildings are super fun, super inclusive. It's like the top level gamification. You come here, you're in stations, you're in teams, you challenge, you get scored. At the end of it, there's an overall winner. And so, yeah, that's really the ultimate gamification. People get super competitive and they just really go for it. But it's really, really fun and interesting to observe, again, as a geek, how they are reacting to the different challenges and how they're performing. So the reason why I think the team buildings are so fun and popular is because people that may not be as physically fit sometimes outperform people that are more fit in certain stations and game. And that just gives them so much confidence and just so much, they want to participate and be part of it, right? It's not just a place where the fittest win, right? You got to be both physically and mentally fit. So yeah, that's another super exciting and differentiation, let's say, as other providers, I guess.
To dive a little bit more into the personal training side of things, how long does it take for someone to see a little bit of improvement? And is it easier to see improvement in some areas as compared to others?
Right. So first and foremost, I just really want to make sure I mention that when we get a customer and they tell us, for instance, look, I've noticed my memory is not as good as it used to be, or I just noticed I'm not as quick as I was before, or I have a specific condition, and so on and so forth, we always tell them we cannot guarantee results. We are very, very, very specific. We are not a medical facility. We are still a fitness center, okay, that combines the two types of training. Yes, it's based on science, evidence-based, but we really, really don't overpromise, okay? We let the journey happen and we see how that evolves. I can say that we have seen a lot of successful clients, but we never would promise on that. So to answer your question, you can see results pretty fast, starting from 6 weeks, 3 months, so on and so forth. So in which areas is probably difficult to say. I mean, if we geek out into the science of what the studies shows, predominantly memory and processing speed are the easier domains to kind of improve, right, as opposed to executive function and so on and so forth. But yeah, 6 to 12 weeks. So we've run 2 pilot studies of 6 weeks, training clients 2 to 3 times a week. And we've seen improvements in verbal ability, attention, memory, and processing speed. So we can say we see results, but we never, ever promise anything.
So for the audience out there, can you just break down executive function? Were those variables that you just mentioned part of executive function, or does it have more variables that we're measuring?
Yeah, so we look at all the domains. So when we do the cognitive testing, yes, we would look at the 4 domains of cognition. That's right. We see a variety of improvements. And honestly, they can vary massively. What we do with personal training clients, obviously, we would program the sessions according to those domains. To make it very, very simple, right? Let's say someone is struggling with memory. I'm not saying that all the cognitive stations we're going to be doing are going to be memory, but there's going to be a high chance of us implementing a lot of memory games into that, right? To work on memory. If someone is working on more visual-spatial skills, someone is more of an athlete, there'll be a higher emphasis and focus on those areas, right? That's what I'm saying. But of course, overall, we're working the whole brain. You can't really just segment it. But yeah, we'll pick and choose different games on the machines that try and focus more on certain aspects and domains and areas than others. So that's how the programming works.
Great. So a couple of questions to follow up from there again. I think the first one is, in terms of dual tasking, do you find, for example, if someone were to exercise and then someone were to do cognitive activities, that they improve faster, or if they focus purely on cognitive activities first, then they do the exercise in a period after, then they will improve faster? Do you have any data on that? Because I think that the science on this is all pretty new.
I'd say new relatively, as in, yeah, it's relatively new. I mean, this type of training, to be honest with you, it existed since we were ancestors. I mean, our ancestors, when they were going hunting, they were doing cognitive motor training. They were going around looking for a prey. They were holding a spear. They were running fast to slow. They were using all their senses, right? They were doing decisions. Do I go that direction? I need to pay attention on the prey, so I'm focusing. So executive function. So they were using all the domains back in the days. We just didn't really think about it or knew about it, right? Even when we didn't have Google Maps, we were using our brains way more to actually know where to go and remember the way and so on and so forth, right? So this training has been existing forever. Really, if we want to think about it, we just weren't conscious about it. We didn't need to recreate it because it was part of our life, right? Now we are more sedentary. Everything we do is way more planned, way more structured. So that's why facilities like SPARKD exist as well, right? We are trying to stimulate, not just the elderly, but even the athletes. I mean, for different reasons, of course, right? So, yeah, the science itself has been around for the past 25, 30 years, like more studies are starting to come out. I mean, you're always going to have contradictory studies and stuff, but there is more and more evidence coming out that suggests that cognitive motor training, therefore meaning doing a physical and a cognitive task simultaneously, improves neuroplasticity more than if you do the two tasks separately. As someone was asking me just this morning, and I found that really interesting, actually. She said, it's so interesting that actually I don't have to sit down and do Sudoku, but I actually can do exercise here and work on my cognition. And I said, that's right. And I said, and sitting down, it's really not that good for you. So even if it's just that, right? And I'm making it very, very simple to understand, but there is more and more research coming out that really suggests that doing the two increases more neurons and comes with all the benefits. Plus, working out itself, as we know, as a fitness professionals, has its own lot of benefits, right? So, yeah, it's really a no-brainer in a sense, but you've got to try. People have to try it, and that's even when the penny drops. When people try dual tasking, especially on some of our tech, you can see them, they're paying attention. Maybe they'll be doing a simple cognitive task, but because you're exercising, you're moving, you're having to pay just so much more attention. You can see them like really focusing. And what does that mean? You're focusing. You're creating neuronal connections, right? They're getting stronger because you're so in the zone and you're paying so much attention to a task that may be simple otherwise. And with that, I'm not suggesting we don't do just cognitively challenging activities. I'm not saying all you have to do is this type of training, right? I mean, I'm not suggesting if you're an academic to stop being an academic because you're going to have a powerful brain in there because you're studying so much and you research. Or if you're a doctor or if you're a player or whatever, they all have different strengths and so on. But when you're doing cognitive motor training, you're really getting those sparks going into your brain. So that's really what it is about.
I'm just wondering, is there an optimal amount of training packed to your condition, your age, and your goals? So, for example, when I was training triathletes, we always say, if you want to improve your swimming, you have to be at least in the pool 3 times a week. If you want to improve 4 times a week. Same for running, you've got to do a certain amount of mileage if not, you're going to see improvements. For cognitive training, is there a similar type of mental model to impact your training too?
Right, very good question. I don't think the research is there yet, to be honest, specifically. I mean, not that I'm aware of. There's probably research coming out. And then, of course, we all know the exercise W Health Organization's recommendations, 150 to 300 minutes, which goes across the lifespan, really, right? So we typically encourage this type of training 2 to 3 times a week. But we always have to remember that when people come here, they're also physically exercising. So they're not just doing. I want to highlight that because people might think, oh, wow, I have to do 3 hours on brain training. No, it's not just brain training. It's really physical, right? So you're kind of thinking that physical aspect of exercise when you're doing cognitive motor training. So you're kind of killing 2 birds at once. But by all means, I say to every single client, I'm not encouraging you just to do only this type of training. If you want to do it, you're very welcome because when you come here, We will do some soccer drills. We will do some strength workouts. So we'll get your muscle strong. We'll do some cardio workouts that you might do here or you may do somewhere else, right? But, great if you're a triathlete. Actually, you'll get better. Great if you're a swimmer. Great if you're a rugby player. We can be a full training program for someone that wants to just train with us, or we can complement clients that are doing other type of programs. So some of our clients might come just once a week because they do all other types of activities and they play rugby on a Saturday and then they play footy on another day. Or we have clients that come here 4 times a week because they just love it and this is what they do and they don't want to do other stuff.
Yeah, in fact, we both share a client. I guess we know who we're talking about. Yeah, he trains once with me and then he trains with you guys as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So on that point, I'm just wondering, you mentioned previously memory, reaction speed. What other data points do you collect and measure?
We look at executive function. We look at visual spatial skills, processing speed. So these are predominantly the areas we look at.
How do you measure?
So we do a cognitive test. We have a cognitive validated test.
Oh, using that test?
Yeah, we use that test.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after a period of 3 months, you use that test again?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
The reason we do that is because it's a validated test. It's actually a test used by a lot of clinicians. It's used a lot in clinical trials, studies. So it's a validated test. So we get normative data. There are other tests we can utilize at the gym here, but the other tests are predominantly to just show progression and improvements. They're not validated. So that's why we use a validated test.
Are there any differences if an adult were to take the test versus a kid? Is there like a kid version?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So the kiddie version, we typically select 3 or 4 tests, 3 or 4 games, whereas the adult one can go up to 12 games. So the 3 battery test for a child takes about 10 minutes to perform. If you go to a 6 battery test, it's about 20 minutes. If you do the full battery, it's about 45 minutes. So the 45 minutes is actually very intense. I mean, you end up finishing the test and your brain is pretty fried, I have to say. You're like very fatigued. So majority of our clients, they may do the 12 battery test at the beginning. So they get a full report. And when we retest them, if they want to do a shorter version, we do the shorter version, or we just pick and choose the test that they want to retest, essentially.
Are there any particular tests where you have identified if you're below a certain level, it is critical for you to work on this?
Yes, there are cases where clients cannot take the test either because maybe their condition is so advanced that they would just find it too challenging. So yeah, there are things we look out for when they're performing certain games, certain training that may highlight certain things, but we observe them over time. We do not diagnose. We cannot diagnose. We're not professionals in that. These are just markers we look. Typically as well, when they come to us with a condition, they already know they have a condition. So they've been diagnosed by the doctors, something has happened, so they already are aware of it. So it's just a confirmation when they do the test that, yes, I was aware I have that, and now it's in front of my eyes, right? So it's more that case. Typically the client we get is healthy and stuff, but what it's quite interesting to observe is the reaction when they perform the cognitive test. A lot of clients, it's still, of course, I don't want to say a taboo topic. I don't think it's a taboo topic, but people can get quite conscious about testing their brains, right? Oof. And they may go, ooh, that's a sign of my intelligence. It's like an IQ test. It's really not. It's really not. Of course, I mean, there may be some correlation to that, but it's really looking at how your brain is performing in the different domains. And the reason, of course, we monitor progression over time or maintenance over time is because simply you may have had a bad night's sleep. When you wake up in the morning and you're doing your cognitive tests and you maybe haven't had your cup of coffee and you're not performing that well. And then you come in, you see your results, you're like, oh, that was a bit disappointing. And the interesting thing is that quite a large batch or majority of people get disappointed by their results. That's also maybe why they are afraid of being tested. But They do it. They find it actually challenging. They love the challenge. They find it interesting. And then while they wait for the reports, they're kind of wondering and, oh my goodness, what's my result? And then they get the results and they're like, and typically I have to admit the reaction, well, that was a bit disappointing. And okay. And what do we do? So then, yeah.
Does it get any easier? Because I think like you walked me through some of the tests when we were at your previous location. I remember walking out your gym feeling a little bit brain fried. Does it get any easier?
Yes and no, in the sense that it gets easier because maybe you get familiar with some of the games, right? You know how you're doing this type of game on a machine and, you're familiar with the rules, you know how to play the game. But the interesting thing about the setting and the setup of the actual machines and games, but also from the physical side of things, is that as you're getting better, we are challenging you more. So, right, to explain it very, very simple. If maybe we're taking a client that cannot squat at the beginning, maybe senior client, and they haven't exercised for a long time, and all they can do is they can do that sit to stand, right, as an example. So maybe they start with the sit to stand. And maybe they start with a low-demand cognitive game, meaning maybe they are just tracking light or reaction, and we're combining the two, right? Maybe that's intense enough for them at that point in time. From there, maybe they do that. They become familiar with the exercise, and then next step, what do? We take the chair off. Now you're squatting. And now, instead of just doing reaction lights, I'm going to give you a memory game, as an example, or I'm making the lights flash faster, right? So I'm increasing the load both physically and cognitively. Maybe I get to the point, I'm being a bit extreme here, but maybe I get to the point where I go all the way and this client is doing burpees at some point and they're doing mathematics, subtractions up to 1,000 or whatever. So the variety is so wide and you can constantly push the client. It's really down to the trainer's imagination, in a way. You can add so many layers to the programming that it's never ending. It's really never ending. And as any kind of workout, you have to maintain it. If you stop strength training, you'll lose your muscles. If you stop doing your cardio, you lose your cardio fitness. If you stop doing cognitive training, you lose your cognition. It's very simple.
That is like exactly the next question.
My God.
I'm licensed on this topic. How much detraining effect is there from your memory as well as from your reactive speed versus your executive functions? In each single domain, is the detraining effect similar? Does it take longer in some variables?
It's something that I cannot answer, to be honest. I won't lie. I cannot answer because typically we retest clients that stay with us. So I haven't retested clients, and actually maybe that's a good thing to do. Retest clients that actually maybe have stopped training or post-training. But an example comes to my mind. We ran a pilot study last year at SPARKD. It was a 6 weeks intervention, 3 times a week, 20 minutes exercise. And we did exactly the pre and post assessment. And 75% of the participants improved their cognitive domains between 15 to 24%. So that was really encouraging results. We had a client that dropped the training and she came back after 6 months or so because she said, actually, I've noticed that I've lost some of the benefits that I had gained by training with you. So, yeah, I cannot answer your question with the really objective data because we haven't retested, but it's something that I will definitely retest when we do our next study. I don't want to say my guess, but my instinct would tell me that yes. And I think probably a matter of, well, no, I'm not going to answer that. So I don't know. I don't want to take risks.
I think that anecdote is good enough answer, and I think we are all finding out, right? What are the effects? It's great that you have this gym so that you are able to find out the effects. If not, we wouldn't be able to find out the effect.
Yeah.
What other things are you trying to find out? What other research have you done in the past, as well as what other research you guys are looking to do?
Sure. We've conducted this 6 weeks pilot study last year. It was just an internal study for us. We did a 6-week study as well with one of the international schools. So we looked at kids this time, which was also quite fun. I mean, the training as well with the kids was really, really fun, the way they reacted. But we saw some improvements there as well. Again, it was a 6-week study. They only trained twice a week for half an hour, but we saw some improvements. The future, we're talking about different studies with different organizations, both in Singapore and overseas. Some of the most interesting segments for me to look at would be, for sure, the seniors. The seniors is where we will see most results, okay? Because the seniors are the ones that have to improve, have more of a way to go, and there's more space for improvement, right? I'm particularly fascinated with the prevention side, so the clients between 40 and 60, and that's where there is not a lot of research in that segment. That's why I'm perhaps a bit geeked out about that, because people tell me, no, don't do it, you're crazy, you're not going to get many results. But I'm like, actually, I think I will. And therefore, I want to be a bit daring and challenging. I want to look at that segment. I think it's super interesting, whether it's corporates, of course. I mean, corporates, why corporates? Because they do have to keep their mental acuity and sharpness for a long time. You're performing in a high stressful environment. You have to be sharp, else it's going to be tough to last, into your 60s plus, right? We will live longer, we work longer, we have to, perform. So that's an area that interests me a lot. And of course, there's the longevity side of things. Very, very exciting and interesting as well. I mean, it's such a hot topic these days, right? So these are some of the areas. Of course, athletes would be something that I would love to look at. I mean, improving their performance here in Singapore would be just fantastic. But yeah, we're starting to explore different aspects, and in time, it's going to take a while. It's not...
overnight things, yeah.
Yeah, studies take a long, long time. But yeah.
Thanks for sharing your plans. Before we round off, anything you want to add that I might not have asked?
No, I mean, don't be skeptic.
Yeah, perhaps a misconception that, most people have.
Yes, very good question. And you're a brain gym. Oh, it means that who comes to your gym has a brain problem. I'm like, oh my God, are you for real? Are you serious? I mean, that just shows how much you need that training. Sorry, that maybe cut it off, but no, I mean, seriously, I encourage people to have the openness, the curiosity, the cognitive flexibility to widen their horizons, experience. Don't be afraid to try something new. That would be my encouragement to trainers. Reach out if you want to know more, if you want to get involved. We will have more and more projects coming up. So yeah, just have that openness and curiosity. Don't be afraid of stepping out into the into the unknown, because it's just so fascinating.
Great. With that, we conclude today's episode. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Spark, to Anna. We'll put their contact somewhere on the description, depending on where you're tuning in. With that, till next time, take care.